listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, and in this episode, I want to share what you can do, how you can help your clients with a mindset to succeed in your program if you are not a mindset expert. So if you are like many of my clients, a lot of times, now you might be a therapist or a coach for sure, but I also have a number of people who I work with who are experts in their field, generally speaking from their careers. So maybe you know a lot about child development because you used to be a teacher. Maybe you were a preschool teacher, maybe you were an elementary school teacher, maybe you have your master's of education, and you're going to help parents because you really understand child development and you really understand what psychology-based strategies and practices are really going to help their child. Or maybe you have experience in your career. Maybe you're a mentor of some sort and you know you can help people who are new to your career in a deeper way because you really understand what it takes for them to be promoted if they're looking for growth in their career. Or maybe you have a very specific kind of training and you know that it can really help people. So maybe you know a specific feeding strategy like baby-led weaning or something like that, and you want to help parents with it. And that's fantastic. And the challenge with it is that sometimes your mind can give you all the reasons why you're not equipped enough to do this, or you're not qualified enough to do it, and it can stop you. Or you could say, okay, I know I have the expertise, but I'm also aware that my client's mindset might get in the way, but I am not a certified life coach. I don't know necessarily a lot of mindset strategies. So what if it prevents my clients from getting their results? And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I want to give you some really practical strategies that you can use if you are that expert, but you don't necessarily have a lot of the expertise around coaching or mindset expertise and things like that. Because what I've found is, yes, of course, I'm not going to say don't get your life coaching certification or don't take courses on that. Absolutely. You're more than welcome to do those things. But I also think that even having a few strategies can really, really help your clients get better results. And honestly, when I look back in teaching, had I known these strategies then, I think I would have even helped my kids, my students in a deeper way, because looking back, there were mindset blocks holding them back from succeeding in my classes, but I didn't know. And teachers just encourage kids to do their best. Or, I think we look at things like growth mindset versus fixed mindset and helping kids develop a growth mindset. But if there were any other beliefs, like one of the big ones, because I was a French teacher, was French is pointless, or I'm just bad at French, or I'm just bad at math. Some of it's growth mindset for sure. But if I had had some of these strategies then, I could have really reached the kids that weren't not the A kids, but the kids that were kind of just floating along and weren't really living up to what they could because they had mindset blocks getting in the way. And I want to give a disclaimer here because I was even hesitant to even create this episode, but I know it's going to be helpful for you. So I have to share it. It's the episode that I would have loved to have when I first started my program helping teachers, my first group program, because I felt like, you need to be certified in this or in that. And when I look back, I have had lots of experience with mindset. I mean, I used to help people in the crisis center. I used to be the person that people called when they were about to literally jump off a bridge. I do have a ton of training. I almost became a therapist. I did training for that as well. But there was always this part of me that's oh, it's not good enough. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. So if you've ever had that, I so relate to it. But sometimes just getting started and getting some strategies under your belt can really help. And the reason that I was inspired to create this episode was for two reasons. First, I've had clients and students ask me, what can I do? Exactly like I was saying at the beginning. If I know my expertise, and I have a lot of expertise to help people with, but I need a few mindset strategies to support my clients. That's what this episode is going to be about. And one of my beautiful psychotherapist clients just told me that she absolutely appreciates my mindset shifts and the work that I do around mindset in my program. And I've had a number of therapists tell me that. And that's that is the biggest compliment. When a therapist has told me that, I think oh my gosh, okay, I have to share it now. So thank you if you're listening to the therapist client of mine who just shared that with me this week. I so appreciate it. And I really want to help you. If you are not a therapist or you're not a life coach, I want to give you some practical strategies today so that you can really use just a few things to shift your client's mindset and make the most of the actual expertise that you're taking. You're helping them learn and develop and apply. You're giving some of the mindset shifts that they need in order to do it. So the first thing is you want to think about how to incorporate it enough to be helpful without getting bogged down if it's not your expertise. How do you do that, right? And I remember when I was creating my program for teachers, I started out thinking about all the things that they needed to learn and that they needed to change in their behavior, right? But as I started doing it, I saw that there were some recurring beliefs that were getting in the way. So the first thing that you need to think about is if you're wary of, you want to incorporate it enough to be helpful, but you don't want to get bogged down in doing a lot of mindset, because if you're listening, you're likely not a therapist and you're not looking to be one. You just want to give people enough so that they can take action, right? So the thing to think about in knowing where to actually incorporate or include mindset are two things. The first is, what do your clients or students need to believe in order to join your program? And what do they need to believe in order to get success in your program? So those are two different things. What do they need to believe in order to actually buy your program? And what do they need to believe in order to get success in your program? And those are the beliefs that you concentrate on, the mindset shifts that you need to focus in on. So for example, one of my clients is a parenting coach. She has her master's. She's incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly helpful. But sometimes people weren't joining her program. I'm like, okay, you could help so many people. Like, what's going on here, right? And we started looking at it, and I looked at one of her master classes, and I realized that she was doing a lot of teaching, which I just assumed because she comes from a teaching background. She was doing a lot of teaching, but she wasn't addressing the mindset blocks that were stopping them from joining her program, so they weren't joining her program. When we made this one shift, I saw her yesterday in the morning. She had her workshop 3 hours later. She got 2 people to sign up right off the bat on the workshop, and she has more people still interested in her program. And she went from having no people interested in her program before. Now she's already made 6 sales. In this round, she went from 1 sale the last round. Her goal is 10 in this round, and she's already made 6. We've got some other strategies we're going to work to get her 10 people. But this one shift got her those 2 people right off the bat in her workshop. And here's what it is that you need to think about, like I said, what beliefs do they have that are stopping them from joining your program? So when we chatted about it, we looked at one example is, my child is unique. I've tried everything, therefore nothing will work for us. So if you think that your kid is unique and that you've tried everything, you're not going to join a program on parenting to help you with your child, because you're going to think it's not going to work for me, right? So we need to shift that belief to saying something like, yes, your child is unique, which is why we have strategies specific to different temperaments, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, because you've likely been using one-size-fits-all strategies, and I'm going to show you strategies that are going to be unique for your child so that it is going to work for you. Because your kid is unique, but that doesn't mean that we can't help you. So just that shift alone really helped her clients see oh, okay, this is going to work for me. So the first thing to look at is what beliefs are getting in the way. And I'm going to give you some examples of how to shift it in a moment. But what beliefs are getting in the way of them being able to actually wanting to join your program? What's stopping them from joining them? It could be things like universal beliefs, like I don't have the money, I don't have the time, things like that. But what are they what is it about your specific thing that you teach that they don't think is going to work for them, or that they disagree with, or they have a belief stopping them from buying in? So that's the first thing to look at, is what beliefs do they need to believe in order to join your program? The next is, what do they need to believe in order to succeed once they have joined your program? So I remember one thing that was really powerful for me was when I was working with teachers, is I had one client who blew my mind. she had had a lot of personal health challenges. And when she went back to the classroom, she'd been teaching for like 20 years. She made changes. Like she cut 5 hours a week off her Sundays. She'd been working 5 hours on Sundays every week. She cut it out in 3 weeks. She stopped working weekends. It was like that, bam. And I'm like, okay, I have to ask you, what was it that made the difference? Like what changed for you? What allowed you to do this so quickly? And she said it was a video that I created where I said, are you willing to decide that it is possible for you to make the changes now? Are you going to decide that you can do this, that you can make the shifts, or are you going to stay and take the same actions you've always taken? Are you willing to make that change? Are you willing to decide? And she said, when it was that I decided that it was possible for me, that's when I was able to make the shifts really quickly. And so her belief that she had to take on was that it was possible for her to be able to stop working weekends. But if you have a client who has a belief kind of like one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, yes, I want to stop working evenings and weekends, but it's not really possible for me to be a good teacher and not work evenings and not work weekends, or it's not possible, or I just have too much work and I have to work on the weekends. Doesn't matter what strategies you teach them, they're never going to do it because they don't have the right belief to support the change that they want to make. So when you're thinking about what mindset pieces do I need to incorporate into my program, you want to think about what beliefs do they need to have in order to join your program, and what beliefs do they need to have in order to succeed in your program. So that's the first. The next thing I want to share about is the anatomy of a belief. So a belief is just a thought that you've thought on repeat until it becomes truth, right? It's something that we just believe that we've usually adopted as a child, or we've created a meaning around something and we just believe it to be true, right? And you can dive deeper into beliefs if you're looking at it, if you want to know more. What I want to get into today is the anatomy of a belief. So there are two types of beliefs: meaning-making beliefs or cause-making beliefs. So you can have a meaning, A equals B, A equals B, or a cause belief, A causes C. Does that make sense? A causes C. So if we're talking about a meaning belief, when we think back to my students, I am bad at math. Like they're just saying that is truth. That is just what it is. They have made a meaning that I equals bad at math. Like that's just an is for them. But of course, that's not true. That's just a belief, right? A cause is something that is stopping them from getting there somewhere. So in order for me to teach to get my clients results, I need to teach everything I know. That's a belief, for example. For me to get my clients results, the cause of that is I need to teach everything I know. And that's going to be a belief that stops people from joining my program, because if you think you just need to teach everything you know, you're not going to work with me, because you're going to think, oh, I just have my expertise, I'm good. But I'm going to say, have you tried that? If you've tried teaching everything you know, try putting that into 3 months of a program. Try to do it without overwhelming yourself or overwhelming your clients or fire hosing them with information. It's not going to work, right? But if people believe that, going back to, they're not going to join my program, right? So anatomy of a belief is A equals B, this equals this, or A causes this thing will cause this explanation. So I want to give you some examples when we actually go to shift them. But I just want you to know it's all an interpretation. It's that there's not even always a fact, but there's like some sort of fact, and then we're making meaning about that fact or making it mean something. So that's what's creating the belief, and we need to shift that, pull it apart. So it's not A equals B, it's A equals C. Or it's not A causes B, A causes C. So we want to shift the meaning that they're making of that belief. And usually I've got to say, when I teach this, I usually teach it visually, but imagine that in your mind. We want to change what they're equating together, or we want to change what the cause is. So let's give some examples of actually shifting these beliefs. So there are 3 strategies that I'm going to teach you today to be able to help your clients adopt the right mindset to have success in your program. So the first is, it's not about X, it's about Y. It's not about X, it's about Y. So one of the beliefs that I got a lot in teaching was that, and I used to help teachers stop working evenings and weekends, is that I would get that this is just how it is. Teaching is time consuming. Teaching is time consuming. Or to be a good teacher, I need to work really long hours. Now, they didn't consciously know that they were thinking that, but they had equated like, for me to be a good teacher, I need to work long hours. So to be this, I need to work long hours. And underneath that, they were thinking, I just don't have enough time. There isn't enough time. So a few different ways that I could shift that was if people believe that I don't have enough time, I can say, it's not about X, it's about Y. It's not about having enough time. It's about priorities. It's not about having enough time. It's about priorities. So it's not about saying, because everyone, like, time is relative. Time is something that exists outside of us. It's like we think of that, but really we just decide what we want to do with our day, right? It's when you put too many priorities in your day that you're going to feel like you don't have enough time. So it's not about having time. It's about choosing your priorities. And are you putting too many priorities on your plate so you never feel like you can get through them all? So now we're shifting that they're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not about the time. Maybe it's about my priorities. And then I can shift to, in order for me to be a good teacher, I need to work long hours. I can say it's not about the number of hours that you work that causes you to be a good teacher. It's about knowing your students well. It's about knowing the things that truly matter. It's about the priorities. It's about doing the things that are going to make the biggest impact. That's what's going to make you a big teacher. So I change what causes you to be a good teacher to something different. So if I can say to somebody, like someone who's doing a ton of busy work, tons of different things, and they are working really hard, but is it really going to make the impact for their students? No. If they can really focus in on the few things that are going to make the biggest impact for their students, knowing their students really well, getting a sense of what their needs specifically are, where are they getting stuck? It's the same for you and your clients, by the way. If you can really get clear on where are my clients getting stuck, what mindset shifts do they need to make, what mistakes are they making, what wrong actions are they taking? That's the thing. If you can really get clear on that and make a plan to change that, that's what's going to get your clients better results. And for my teachers, that was going to make them the better teacher, not doing all of this extra work. So really learning how to prioritize and getting to the point of like, okay, what do I actually need to be spending my time on to be able to get the result that I want? So that is the first example, is really getting clear on what are your clients believing. It's that they think it's something, and you want to shift that cause or that meaning that they're making. It's not about this, it's about this. And that language pattern can help them start to like tease apart the belief that they're having. You can ask it as a question too. What if it's actually not about this? What if it was about that? Like one that I will always remember is when I went to my first event, and my first live event, and I was in Sedona, and I was in a room with about 50 other entrepreneurs. One of my mentors came to speak to us, and I remember asking questions saying like, I really want to be here, but I feel so irresponsible being here at the same time. Like I want to be able to grow my business, but at the same time, I feel irresponsible investing in coming to this event when I could have been investing in my kids. I could have spent time with my kids. I could have spent this money on my kids. Like I feel very irresponsible and I feel torn between those two worlds. So that was like one belief that I had. And he asked me, and so this is the way you can ask it as a question, what if it's not about being responsible? What if it was irresponsible not to be here? So it's kind of like a bit of a shift. But he said, like, what if it wasn't about being responsible? What if it's actually irresponsible not to come here? Because if you're not taking the time to grow your business and to learn the things that you need to learn to grow it, you're going to be working really hard, but you're not going to get the results, and you're not going to be able to, I mean, he didn't go into all these details, but that's what I realized is like, if I'm not taking the time to invest in my business and learn how to do this and actually make this work, I'm going to spend all this time working, but I'm not going to make enough money, and I'm not going to be able to support my kids anyway. I'm not going to have the freedom to spend more time with them anyway. So I need to go to those things in order to be more responsible for my kids. But that was a shift that I had to make. And he used that same kind of like a little bit of a different phrasing, but shifting the meaning to it's not about this, it's about this. So that's the first one. The next one that you can use, these are SOM patterns, by the way, if you want to look at slide of mouth patterns. The last one is not a slide of mouth pattern, but the next one that you can think about is it's not about X, it's about Y. is metaphors. Metaphors. So metaphors compare something to something else that people know well. And basically, you want to think about, okay, what is the belief that my student or client is experiencing right now that's stopping them from getting results? And what belief do I want them to adopt instead? And I'm going to choose a metaphor to illustrate my belief, like that new belief that I want them to take on. And they're going to think about things in a different way. So one that I use all the time that you may have heard before if you've been listening to my podcast for a little while is that a lot of times my clients think that they need to teach everything that they know, right? It seems logical. Just teach people what you know. Teach them everything they know. But the problem with teaching everything they know is that you can inadvertently fire hose your clients with too much information. So they can be overwhelmed with information, which causes them to check out of your first few rounds of your program. You don't get testimonials. They don't get results. You don't get engagement because they're so overwhelmed by all the information that you're giving them that they just check out. So instead of overwhelming them and being the fire hose with all the experience and expertise and just trying to teach them everything you know, which, I mean, is that really possible? Because how many years have you spent developing your expertise, right? You want to be the irrigation system. And the irrigation system gives people the right amount of, let's say, gives plants the right amount of water at the right time, at a right, like specific time so that they can grow, right? And so your program should do the same thing. It should give people the right amount of information at the right time so that they can actually take action on it and move forward and grow to the result that they're looking for. But if you just randomly put a ton of information on them, they're never going to get there. You need to be able to think about things like what strategies do they need? What mindset shifts do they need? What implementation action steps do they need to take? How are they getting there? Am I getting the feedback from them? What do I need to modify? All of those things are what help your clients get results. You want to be the irrigation system. So that's an example of using a metaphor. I compared teaching everything you know to a fire hose. And instead of what I teach, which is called teach to grow content, to an irrigation system. And that helps shift people's beliefs like, oh, shoot, I am overwhelming them with too much content. I actually do need to give them less. A metaphor can really help people shift those beliefs. So the last one that I want to do is something that's really simple, but it helps people see that what they believe is actually just an interpretation and it's not necessarily serving them. So what it is you notice the belief that's stopping your client from getting the result that they want, right? When you're doing your group coaching or whatnot, and you want to encourage them to think of other ways of interpreting the situation, So for example, one of the things that I get from my clients is they'll say, I really want to launch my program, but I'm afraid I won't be able to fill it. And then I'm saying, okay, what are you making that mean? Well, I'm making that mean that I'll be a failure or I'll be embarrassed or this will never work or whatever the interpretation is that they're making it mean. So what are you making it mean? This is what they're afraid of, that you're never going to fill your program. So you're making it mean I'm a failure. This will never work. I'm embarrassed. I should never have done this in the first place. I'll never be able to grow my business, whatever interpretations that you're creating of this event, right? But is that belief really served my students? No, because I mean, lots of people have had failed launches. Most people have. It's normal. It's so part of it. So instead, I need to shift their belief from what if this happens, it's a failure or whatever the interpretation that you're giving it to something that's more neutral or positive. So I can say, okay, what are you making it mean? I'm making it mean X, Y, Z. Okay, what else could it mean? Could you come up with 5 or even 10 other interpretations for this situation? And if I'm doing it in a group setting, I'll have people all write it down together so they can take the belief that's holding them back and they can write down a bunch of other interpretations. Or we can do it together for this one specific person and give her or them other interpretations for it. So if we said, you think about it right now, if you're afraid that you're not going to be able to fill your program, and if you don't fill your program, what are you making it mean? You could say, I'm making it mean that it's a failure. But there are other interpretations you could give for it. And you could give 5 to even 10 is really going to help you see that it's actually just a belief that you have and it's not truth. Okay. Because again, a belief is something that we believe to be true. So if we say, I will not filling my program will make me a failure. You could also say, well, maybe it means that I didn't have enough people who saw my offer. Maybe it means that, I needed to get in front of more people. Maybe it means that people are interested in what I have to do, but my offer isn't quite right. Maybe it means that I'm missing something in my strategy. Maybe it's just feedback and not failure. Maybe I could just learn from it. Maybe it's just a stepping stone to getting to where I want to go. Maybe this is actually very normal and everyone goes through this and I can just learn from it and I don't have to make it mean anything. Maybe it won't actually happen and I'm afraid for nothing. So maybe that actually not filling it is actually a gift because it'll help me see the things that I need to improve on. So the next time I do fill it, I can do it on repeat because I know what causes it to be filled. If you fill your program the first time, you have no idea how you did it. Can you really repeat it? You know what I mean? So do you see how when you take the belief that they're afraid of and you say, what are you making it mean? And then you say, okay, what are 10 other possible interpretations that we could give this situation? People are like, oh, actually, maybe it doesn't really mean this. Maybe it could mean something else. And you can invite them to take on the belief that's going to serve them better because all beliefs are made up anyway. You might as well choose one that's going to serve you. Does that make sense? So I want to go over the 3 ways, the 3 strategies. Actually, let's recap the whole thing. So first we talked about how to incorporate enough mindset so that it's helpful without bogging you down. You want to think about what are the beliefs getting in the way of your people buying your program and what do they need to believe for the right people to actually join your program. And then once they join, what are the beliefs stopping them from getting results? And what do they need to believe in order to get results? Those are the things that you want to focus on, right? The next thing we talked about is the anatomy of a belief so that you can actually shift it. It's either a meaning-making belief, A equals B, or A causes B is that cause belief. So you want to get to the kind of bottom of it and you want to be able to shift it by either changing the meaning they're making. A doesn't equal B, A actually equals C. Or A doesn't cause B, A actually causes C. Or A doesn't cause B, D causes B, for example. So you can change the cause and the result there. And then the 3 ways to actually practically use this in real time or in a real way with your clients, you can say the phrase, what if it's, or the question even, what if it's not about X? What if it's actually about Y? What if it's not about this thing? What if it's actually about that thing? And they can go, oh, I hadn't seen it that way. You can use metaphors to think about what is that you want them to believe instead and use a metaphor to help them see it differently, to shift their beliefs. Or you can help them see what are they making it mean and then invite them to think of 5 or even 10 other interpretations so they can start to tease apart and see which interpretation do I want to take on as my new belief rather than feeling like I'm stuck in this way that's holding them back. So I hope that today was helpful. I really wanted to give you some really practical, tactical strategies that you can use in your program, especially if you don't feel like you are a mindset expert. And if you're listening and you're in signature program design, because truly I made this for my signature program design students. If you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I want to actually apply this and I want to use, how can you help me find what beliefs my people are thinking? How can I actually use this in my program? Bring it to a coaching call and we can talk about it. I would love to help you out with it. So thank you so much for listening. And of course, if you want to join signature program design, you want to be able to create your program, you want to fill your program, and you want to help people get amazing results, and you want to have some help with that, send me a DM. I would love to chat with you and see if it would be a good fit for you. So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Align and Inspire podcast, and I will see you next week.